Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and welcome to another episode of WAM News Live. There's no shortage of news. It's invading my space, man. Like, it's everywhere I look, it's like a new story, and then there's a new story attached to that new story. It's never ending. Before we get into everything, first of all, I'll let some people tune in. Who knows if anyone's going to tune in the way that YouTube's been in recent days regarding not notifying people and stuff like that as we get completely shadow banned. So as we open it up, for anyone that's interested, here is our Bitcoin address if you wish to donate and help us out in any way we can. It's really important now more than ever as we head to Africa for this documentary, and it's really difficult to make ends meet, especially as YouTube cracks down on us as much as they have. But nonetheless, with that said, we'll get into it a bit later. Crypto is being crushed today because of a bunch of stupid morons at Bitfinex. And of course, this is in regards to the whole Tether scandal. We'll get into that in a little bit. But first, as we see, 4 people out of 122,000 people are watching. All right, sweet. At least we reached 4 people. That's actually pretty good for at this point in a video. Ah, man. Aaron Honch says, hi, Josh. Hello to you as well. 17 people tuning in. Okay, so for those that haven't seen this before, what we do is we do a live report, then we cut it off, and then I say find the truth, be the change, all that kind of stuff, and then I go to the questions. Super chats go to the top. It makes it most easy to actually see the comments. A bunch of people are now tuning in. AB says, yes, first like again. Oh, good luck on the ground for the trip. J.R.M. O'Brien says, hello. Marcel Invisible says, yellow. Josh Invisible. That's exactly how John Snyson would say invisible as a Norwegian. Barnaby says, hey. DHKTK1 says, woohoo. Agreed. Always woohoo. Anyway, Barnaby says, are you Canadian? I am, but I'm in Las Vegas right now. Make sure to press like on the video. Get it in with the algorithm. Hopefully we actually reach someone. I know it's a weekday, at least in the United States and Canada and Mexico. It is the afternoon and early evening on a weeknight, so there's never like a huge promise of reaching everyone. But hopefully, if you press like, we'll be seen by a few more people. AB says, meaning I think it's a blast crater. There's no evidence of any crater in the entire galaxy that looks anything like that. There's some that people claim are similar to the reshot structure, but it isn't the same. There's very obvious differences, which means that we can say all day that it's a crater. We'll find out. I'm going there, and I'm going to use the right technological equipment in order to find out one way or another. I'm not here to confirm my own bias. I'm here to prove one way or another and find anything I can, because no one's actually going there and studying it in person. They just look at it from Google Earth. Anyway, I'm going to get to my first story here of the day. Do not go anywhere when I tune out of the story afterwards. I'm not going anywhere. Just stay here. Anyway, let's get to this. Let's get all these articles up, ready to go. This is the good part about doing it live. Anyway. As this Zero Hedge article says, Mueller report reveals Russia taped Bill Clinton having phone sex with Monica Lewinsky. Uh-oh, it looks like Bill Clinton's in a little bit of trouble again. As the article says, the Washington Examiner reports that a redacted portion of the Mueller report mentions a claim that Russia recorded President Bill Clinton having phone sex from Air Force One with White House intern Monica Lewinsky. And as it continues, Clinton allegedly was recorded by Russia in the 1990s, allowing Russia to learn of the affair before American officials. A reference to the Clinton intercept was redacted from the Mueller report to protect personal privacy, but sources told the Washington Examiner that the context makes clear what was blacked out. According to the report, Center for the National Interest President Dmitry Sims sent Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner in a 2016 email with recommended talking points to counter Hillary Clinton's Russia attacks. The email referenced a well-documented story of highly questionable connections between Bill Clinton and Russia. At a meeting in New York, Siems told Kushner the details. Russia allegedly recorded President Clinton on the phone with Lewinsky, opening questions of foreign leverage over the ex-president turned potential first spouse, Washington Examiner. As it continues, during the August 17 meeting, Siems provided Kushner the Clinton-related information that he had promised. Siems told Kushner that, redacted, reads the Mueller report. Siems claimed that he had received this information from former CIA and Reagan White House official Fritz Ermarth, who claimed to have learned it from U.S. intelligence sources, not from the Russians. That should be highlighted the most there and emphasized the most. As it continues, as the Examiner's Stephen Nelson notes, the redaction is likely to anger Republicans as the allegation has been known since at least 2001, and the Mueller report's reference to a claim that President Trump watched prostitutes urinating in a Moscow hotel room was not struck out. And really, who cares if he did? Like, why is this people's business? It's so weird. I'll get into why I care about the Clinton story in a moment. According to Ermarth, a 78-year-old who worked in the CIA for 25 years and was chairman of the National Intelligence Council from 1988 to 1993, the Mueller report inaccurately suggests that he mishandled classified information when in fact he used public sourcing. And I quote, the line in the Mueller report that says any of this was based on intelligence information is a product either of faulty remembering by Dmitry or flawed interference or a hostile fabrication by the Mueller report, said Ermarth. The report wording implies my misuse of intelligence or use of intelligence that is classified in this context, and that is completely false. And it shows here in this piece, it says, independent counsel Ken Starr's 1998 report on Clinton's affair with Lewinsky identified 17 phone sex calls in 1996 and 1997. The report says Clinton told Lewinsky that he suspected that a foreign embassy, he did not specify which one, was tapping his telephones, and he proposed cover stories. If ever questioned, she should say that the two of them were just friends. If anyone ever asked about their phone sex, she would say that they knew their calls were being monitored all along and the phone sex was just a put-on. Ermarth thinks he told Siems that the Clinton-Lewinsky phone call was intercepted while the president was traveling on Air Force One, but that the detail is believed to not have been conveyed to Kushner or included in the report. Washington Examiner, this is where it comes from. According to Ermarth, he was not interviewed by Mueller and says he discussed the Clinton phone sex intercept with Siems during a 2014 or 2015 trip to Washington. Spokespeople for Mueller, Siems, and Kushner did not respond to the Examiner's request for comment. The Mueller report was redacted by the Justice Department in collaboration with Mueller's team. Overall, there were 855 redactions according to the Smoking Gun. Just 7% of those were for personal privacy, according to Vox. The majority of the redactions, however, was due to the involvement of grand jury deliberations or harm to an ongoing case. According to the report, Siems told the investigators Kushner appeared to consider the phone sex story old news, as news outlets had long ago reported that Russia had advanced knowledge about Lewinsky. Meanwhile, Kushner told Mueller's team he did not receive information from Siems that could be operationalized and doubted new negative information could be unearthed on the Clintons. So an unverified claim that Trump had hookers pee on a Moscow bed was published without redactions, while Bill Clinton's alleged Air Force One phone sex conversation was kept under the wraps. Of course it was not relevant, but you know what Trump did was. Look, it's more of the attempt to smear and all that kind of stuff. Look, I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm certainly not a Clinton supporter. I'm not a supporter of government. I'm a supporter of of individualism, of freedom, and not using force against other people. But it's worth mentioning this Clinton story simply just because of all the things he's been tied up in and somehow has gotten away with. It's crazy how long Bill Clinton has managed to still remain popular for some reason as a cool guy who, played saxophone on TV and was anti-establishment, quote unquote, and got elected, and then was involved in vast criminal activity and, meddling in other elections and working with China and, working with Saudi Arabia and Russia and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, that's not the point. It's just the fact that he was on the Lolita Express with Jeffrey Epstein. Why aren't more people talking about that? He ditched his Secret Service detail to be on a plane that involved underage prostitutes and potentially slaves. How is this not a huge thing all over the news? Friends with Harvey Weinstein, and we know what happened with that. Friends with people like Huma Abedin and Anthony Weiner, who was involved in trying to, get images and try and basically, send creepy messages to an underage girl, and then was involved in having all these creepy pictures on his computer, and also was sending pictures of himself, like half naked, with his child next to him. I mean, these people are involved with really, really sketchy, creepy people. And how could we not question that? Sure, okay, Trump might have done something in a hotel room, and I don't even care what Bill Clinton did with Monica Lewinsky. That is like the cover story. That's what they talk about. They talk about Monica Lewinsky. What about his rape cases? What about the fact that, as we've interviewed Juanita Broaddrick on multiple occasions here at WAM, where she actually said during the election she feared for her life. It was shared. The video was shared by Donald Trump himself, actually. The fact that isn't talked about, but Lewinsky is. Rape versus an affair. Why is the affair covered and not the rape? And then the sexual harassment and the sexual assault. It's mind-boggling what they consider relevant and what they consider irrelevant. It's another example of who controls the media and who controls the mind, and also to create divide as well. It's not necessarily clean cut. This could have a lot to do with just creating divide and causing people to clash against each other instead of focusing on the real enemies, the state, the banking system, the cartels that are completely deep-sixing their freedoms and their ability to live freely on this beautiful earth that we live on. This is an attack on all individuals, so it's all part of a diagnosis here. It all is tied in to the major complex that is distracting us, confusing us, giving us false information, indoctrinating us, making us dependent and weak and stupid, and making us, support or be cheerleaders for an organized crime racket we call government. Left or right, Pepsi or Coke, both are bad for you, both are probably made by the same company, and both are laughing and chuckling behind closed doors, and we all beg for one or the other, saying we need change. We've been doing that since the beginning of time. We've been doing that since ancient Greece, and it's only gotten worse, and it's progressively getting worse and worse by the year, an incremental frog boil to complete collectivism, and then we sit here going, oh yeah, well, like Trump P-tapes. Like, with the whole Russia thing, this was all a big guise to, create instability with Russia, to cause a war inevitably with Russia. The monetary system needs a war. They're desperate, and there's a monetary coalition, and what Russia itself calls a new world order being formed around the idea of creating, a global currency outside of the U.S. dollar. And the U.S. is freaking out. People are swapping out of their currencies, and I think that this is all going to lead to, just their desperation to create a centrally planned worldwide cashless society by fiat. So I think this is all tied into this whole construct, and the fact that this Bill Clinton news isn't really being talked about is strange, but what's even more strange is that it's barely being talked about that people have come out against him for rape, and as many as 80 people have come out against him for sexual harassment. How is that not a thing? And then, Joe Biden running for president, all these women that came out against him, and him like on camera sniffing little kids' hair. These people are sick, disgusting individuals that we sit back and, act complacent to because it doesn't fit our narrative to attack that person on that side of that collectivist paradigm. And it's disgusting. When are we going to learn from this? It's just so perpetual. It's just brainwashing. It's mental disability. It's seriously mental illness. Statism, a religion that we get so glossy-eyed and dependent over. Sad. Very, very sad. Anyway, we will continue to cover this issue as it continues to unfold, as I'm sure it will. It always does with Bill Clinton. There's so much still to be uncovered about the Clinton crime syndicate. And I have no doubt we'll be learning more soon. And with Joe Biden running, we are probably going to learn a whole lot about Joe Biden too. And I'm just hoping that they pull the kill switch at WikiLeaks now that Julian Assange is in custody. And by the way, according to his mother, isn't allowed to see lawyers or anything and is being kept in the UK's version of Guantanamo Bay. Anyway, we will continue covering the subject. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. All right, don't go anywhere. So again, if for those just tuning in, we do the reports live, then we cut them so we could post them later on, and we are still around after the reports, and we're going to do more right away. Uncle Faka says Andrew Yang for president. No one for president. Rule yourself. Let the markets decide. Stop. Your ideas do not require force. You cannot use force against other people because you think your ideas are best. That is not only immoral, but it's also illogical. And also, Andrew Yang is talking about vast centralization. It's the Hegelian dialectic of problem, reaction, solution, repeat over and over again for eternity. Create problems and then come to the rescue to stop the problems with the same things that created the problems in the first place. And it just perpetuates for eternity. We need to break free from that system and be individually responsible for our own actions. Liza Jean Williams says, hey Josh, Assange gets to see his lawyers tomorrow, the 26th, finally. Yeah, well, that's good to hear, but I mean, it's so sickening what's been happening with him. So don't mind me, I'm at the very end of my antibiotics for my lung infection, and I'm like spinning in my head, like seeing double at the moment. Doing my best to get all the work done before I have to go out to Africa, so... By the way, we could really use your help right now. For those watching, super chats are really helpful in helping us fund this massive documentary going to Africa, and also just staying alive because YouTube is ripping us to shreds right now. Anyway, yeah, Asher Evans says look up Ed Opperman and listen to story about Epstein and Trump. But anyway. Oh, what's going on? Is the stream going down? It just showed blackness for me here. Hopefully it's not going down. Let me just refresh this. Can you guys see me, hear me? What's going on here? The screen went completely black for me. Okay, there we go. I seem to be back. Anyway, let's see. Look up at... Yeah, so Asher, I should have mentioned that Trump was involved in all that kind of stuff. Too. Yeah, he did go on the Lolita Express, and that's highly questionable. Just Bill Clinton went on it multiple times and ditched Secret Service. I don't know what to think about all of it. I just know that there's something very strange about that whole situation. If J Nikki 25 says, how do you super chat? New to this, there should be a $ below the place where you type in the chat, which should help you. I've never sent a super chat personally, but I assume that you click that and you put information or whatever. I'm going to get to the next report, and then we'll get back to all the questions, super chats, and all that kind of stuff. Really looking forward to getting back to the Q&A. But let's see, we got a lot of things we got to cover today, and I want to make sure to prioritize the best reports here. Let's see. Yeah, I think we should talk about this. All right. Oh, wait, before we do that, Anna Ray says, hi, sorry, unsolicited advice. Take probiotics, selected strains while you're taking antibiotics. Thank you very much for the $10 super chat. I really appreciate it. Really helps a lot. Really, it means a lot, you guys, to get these. I have to say, though, my doctor told me do not take probiotics at all because it'll prolong my lung infection. I don't know. He could be wrong. It's doctors. They're, in the end, they tend to often be, drug dealers. So I don't know. But yeah, he told me not to. But I am getting ready right before I go to Africa to stock up on tons of probiotics to save me the stress when I'm in the middle of the Sahara Desert. Anyway, thank you very much. I'm going to load up this next story. Man, these zero hedge articles just keep exiting out by themselves. It's really frustrating. Let's see. All right, let's get to this. Don't go anywhere when I tune out of this. I'll still be here and answer questions. Let's get to this. As this Zero Hedge article says, Austria wants to ban online anonymity and urges the world to follow in its footsteps. If anything was completely futile, this is it, guys. As the article goes into, convinced that Mark Zuckerberg doesn't quite yet have enough user data, Austria is now considering a new law that would require large internet platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to register their users, effectively banning anonymity on social media sites. The new law would be targeted at depriving those behind hate posts of anonymity, according to the local. Chancellor Sebastian Kurz said, and I quote, "Unfortunately, there have been an increasing numbers of clear violations, denigrations, and humiliations online in the past under the cover of anonymity. That's why we need a framework for more responsible online, or more responsibility online." But isn't the anonymous denigration and humiliation of others a founding principle of the internet and part of what makes it great? As the article continues here, the law, if passed, would go into effect in 2020 and would make it mandatory for users of popular social media sites to register their users. The platforms would have flexibility on how they register their users, but Austria seeks to give its authorities access to a user's identity in the event of hate posting or on suspicion of other laws being broken. The report didn't say what exactly qualified as hate posting. Gernot Blumel, minister in charge of EU affairs, art, culture, and media, said the online space should not be a space without laws. He continues, saying that Austria aimed to set a precedent for other countries in the matter. As it continues here, it says, in Austria, the law would have to be approved by both MPs and the European Commission to ensure that it is in line with the EU guidelines that stipulate that member states cannot regulate a platform provider more strictly than its country of origin. The law would only apply to internet platforms with a reach of more than 100,000 users or a turnover of more than 500,000 euros in Austria. It would also apply to platforms that get more than 50,000 euros in state aid. Opposition parties claim that such a law would restrict online freedom and hand over even more data to giants like Facebook, whose track record with user privacy is spotty, to say the least. Earlier this year, French President Emmanuel Macron caused controversy by suggesting a similar law. So, okay, this is so incredibly futile to think that they are going to create this law under the guise of, hate, and people might get offended. We got to be nice, guys. We can't be offensive to people. The idea that this would actually work is absurd and laughable at best. I mean, as they encroach further and steal more people's information and crack down on anonymity even more so, people will simply move away from those platforms. We've already seen that. People are moving away from these platforms and markets are innovating for this exact problem. Everything from the blockchain to, these different apps on your phone to talk to people, privately. Yeah, there's still those that will willingly give up all their information, and we see that on Facebook and stuff. But as it gets really bad, people are going to move away. And also, it's hard to not mention that a lot of this has to do with not just Facebook stealing information, but what Facebook was helping China with, the social credit system, in order to judge people's scores and not allow them to eat at certain restaurants, leave the country, fly certain places without loud sounds being blasted in their ear to make them uncomfortable. The whole idea is to control people and completely control people. We're not just talking about minor data. We're talking about, he criticized the government. I guess he can't leave the country anymore, which slowly you incrementally, like a frog boil, push this on people and normalizes it. People accept it. It's absurd. So we need to break free from that. But, there's some good news to all this as well, as this other article says here. Americans aren't buying into the elite's cashless utopia. Nearly 2/3 of Americans were against a cashless society, according to a recent survey conducted by Civic Science. As it continues, it says mobile payments and cashless stores are popping up across the country between stores like Amazon Go and payment options like Apple Pay. Using these services requires access to the banking system, namely a bank account and credit card, according to the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. In 2017, FDIC survey showed that 6.5% of U.S. households were unbanked. Oh man, meaning they lacked a checking or savings account, and an additional 18.7% of households were underbanked, meaning they had a checking or savings account but obtained financial products like money orders or payday loans outside of the banking system. That's pretty good news. As Statista's Sarah Feldman notes, some advocates and legislators worry that an increasingly cashless world will further disenfranchise America's homeless and working poor, who may fall into these unbanked and underbanked categories. New Jersey and Massachusetts both have laws that prohibit stores from discriminating against customers choosing to use cash. Cities like Philadelphia, New York, Chicago, D.C., and San Francisco all have proposed or have laws regulating cashless stores. Advocates of cashless stores points to the increased speed and ease of payment for customers and the lower rates of theft that cashless places of business experience. Some cashless options like Square Inc. and PayPal offer payment services that don't require a bank account. About 23% of respondents from Civic Science's survey said they were all for or okay with a cashless society. Just under a tenth of respondents did not have an opinion on whether having cashless society would be a good thing or not. They are trying to unroll a completely centrally planned technocratic superstate, as was a goal for so long. Going back to the early 1970s, where Henry Kissinger met with Mao Zedong, formed an alliance with China, which led to the Trilateral Commission's creation under Zbigniew Brzezinski and Jimmy Carter in the late 1970s, which led, as like I said, an incremental frog boil to the complete technocratic superstate and cashless society we see in China today. Vast debt, vast centralization. What are you going to do about it? If your money's in the bank, it's not yours, it's a bank's. And if your money's always going through the banks via digital transactions and legal tender laws, it's never your money, it's always the banks, and you're always enslaved to the banking system. You are dependent on that system right where they want you, folks. And people are waking up to that. People are breaking free from that. People are looking for other avenues to survive and to break free and to, make sure that they can ensure their wealth and put food on the table for their families. This is incredibly important. This is a time, one of the most historic times to be alive, as we look at this desperation by the system to unroll this as a monetary system collapses at its foundation. So we have negative interest rates in places like Sweden, Japan. They try to unroll their cashless society. Australia is as well. The city of Darwin, as we recently went into, is unrolling a complete facial recognition system and tracking system everywhere to track everyone's moves. They don't have to even put chips in your hands, folks. It's past that now. It's not 1984 anymore. It's 2024 or 2084, and we are far, far, far past what what people could have imagined even 15 years ago. Social credit, the Chinese government, the police having goggles where they can have facial recognition, where they can track everyone and see their social credit scores and things they said on social media, to the extent, and this is a huge civilization, by the way, like biggest population in the world, and then at the same time have facial recognition that sees them when they're jaywalking and sends messages to their in text to their phones in seconds and shames them on a giant billboard. And then the second most populated country in the world, India, which gave homeless people fake bank accounts years ago in order to unroll this. It was all virtue signaling. It's turned into a disaster. And people are seeing that in India. And so many people reject it because gold is a very, very big part of the Indian culture. I talk to people from India all the time, and they just won't take it. They are going to fail in their desperate move to completely enslave the populace once and for all, where you can't do runs in the bank, you're tracked everywhere, they have social credit, and Facebook is unrolling that kind of system. It's obvious. And if they try to crack down on anonymity, the government is one of the most inefficient things on the planet. The only thing that gives them any power is the cheerleaders, the masses who beg for more of it all the time. Maybe this guy or this guy will help. Maybe that red is better than blue, or blue is better than red. Pepsi and Coke over and over again. It's ridiculous. But it's futile because people are breaking free and going to decentralized options, and blockchain infrastructure technology that is decentralized and fundamentally useful. The government's developing on the blockchain. Why aren't we doing more to do that? Because the free market is far more efficient, and we will surpass government in no time in developing that technology. It's so important. So anyway, I think that we are on the verge of creating a great new world that isn't controlled and enforced by these maniacs and psychos that run the state and the banking system. It's all organized crime, and we must break free from it, and I think we will. I'm optimistic, but nonetheless, we have to look at stories like this and see that we need to reject this idea of complete control over the masses at every turn. And we need to, all these unbanked people, that's awesome. People are, breaking free from the banking system, ensuring their wealth. Gold and silver, cryptocurrencies, in our opinion, is great ways to ensure wealth long term. So I think we have a lot of great potential going forward. We just have to discern the difference between a centrally planned cashless society by fiat, by law, by force, and a decentralized, fundamentally useful, privacy-oriented cryptocurrency market and blockchain infrastructure technology to replace the state and the government. There are two things there. You can use a gun to slaughter a whole bunch of innocent people, but you could use that same gun to save all those innocent people from being slaughtered. Same goes for the blockchain. You can use a blockchain to enslave humanity if centralized. You can use a blockchain to overthrow that which enslaves humanity if decentralized. It depends how you use something. You can't just blame, for example, food and stop eating if you get food poisoning. That's a problem of, poisoned food, not food in general. There's good things and bad things. You need to. It's not that difficult to discern between two things. So anyway, I appreciate everyone joining us today. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. All right, let's see. What do we got in the chat here? We got. Oh, great, sweet. JNicky25 said 99 cents. Thank you very much for the super chat. It all means a lot. We really, really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Rainy Steps is back. Says howdy, mister. 279 Canadian at the super chat. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Again, we cannot do it without you. We are getting ridiculously shadow banned. I noticed the second I started mentioning cryptocurrencies, the views dropped out a little bit. Anyway, so let's see. I'm just gonna get everything set up here. Again, those super chats make a huge difference, and we really, 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 really appreciate it. Let's see what we got here. Trying to keep up with as much of the news as possible, but I'm busy as well, and I'm heading to Africa right away, and having a very hard time funding this trip, but hopefully I come back with a good documentary and I don't have to hitchhike across Mauritania to get back to Morocco so that I can get back to the United States and then inevitably Canada. I got conferences and stuff I have to attend the second I'm back. Anyway, let's see. What do we got here for stories? Again, I want to make mention of something for everyone to check out. Because since we're being shadow banned so badly, we do have a subscribe star, which allows us to give you not safe for YouTube content that we won't be able to post on YouTube because they'll just shadow ban us completely and not allow any of our stuff to be seen, and then our media dies. But we do have a subscribe star account, as you can see here, and this is where we'll be doing subscriber-only content for the folks out there that are interested. So $4.99 a month US dollars is the starting tier and up for that. But you can send us less than that as well. But that's just a tier that starts with subscriber-only content. Anyway, let's see what we've got here. I got a few stories I want to go into that I find interesting. Okay, let's do this one. Switch to that. All right. As this Reason article says, new federal immigration guidance says stoners lack good moral character. A policy alert from the USCIS agency clarifies that smoking weed, even in states that have legalized it, can still be grounds for denying citizenship applications. So let me get this straight. The completely centralized communistic collectivist state, the government, the biggest murderer of all time, the biggest human trafficker, the biggest thief, the biggest kidnapper, the biggest polluter, thinks they have the moral high ground to tell people who smoke pot that they are immoral, that they lack good moral character. Okay, so I'm going to go into this further in a moment, but first let's look at this article. It's so absurd. Anyway, as it says, today the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS agency, which processes citizenship applications and is part of the Department of Homeland Security, oh yeah, there's a moral bunch, released a policy alert saying that consuming state legal marijuana could still be grounds for denying someone's citizenship application. And I quote, "Since 1996, a number of states and the District of Columbia have enacted laws to decriminalize both medical and non-medical recreational marijuana in their respective jurisdictions," reads USCIS's alert. However, federal law classifies marijuana as a Schedule I controlled substance, meaning its sale or possession is still a violation of federal law. Therefore, says the agency, admissions of past marijuana use, even if said use occurred in a state or country where it was legal, could be a bar to establishing an applicant's good moral character, a requirement immigrants need to meet in order to become citizens. With the policy alert, smoking pot explicitly joins the many other vices that could be used to deny aspiring Americans full citizenship. Current federal policy also considers polygamists, adulterers, prostitutes, and habitual drunkards to be unworthy of naturalization. As the Cato Institute's David Beer points out, the new policy goes further than just barring immigrants who've been convicted of marijuana offenses or otherwise admitted to consuming it. Reads the USCIS policy alert, even if an applicant does not have a conviction or make a valid admission to a marijuana-related offense, he or she may be unable to meet the burden of proof to show that he or she has not committed such an offense. Oh, God. And I quote, "In other words, even if an immigrant attempting to become an American has never been convicted of using marijuana and won't admit doing so, they could still be denied U.S. citizenship," writes Beer. Deeming stoners to be immoral is obviously a pretty antiquated view, particularly given the fact that a full 65% of Americans think marijuana should be legal. And while a lot of progress has been made on that front on the state and local level, USCIS's policy alert is a helpful reminder that federal prohibitions are still doing a lot of damage. And this brings me to this other story, which I think stands out as well. CBD and cannabis could reduce psychosis risk from high-strength skunk, study shows. Buffer effect could point to a protective mechanism that may help treat disorders like psychosis and addiction. And as this goes into cannabidiol, CBD, chemical derived from the cannabis plant, can counteract the effects of high-strength skunk strains and may help to reduce the risk of serious mental health conditions like psychosis, according to a new study. After using scans to study the effects of different strains of cannabis on the brain for the first time, the team from the University College London said boosting levels of CBD could act as a buffer to ill effects. They found that strains with the same level of THC, the chemical which causes users to get stoned, but higher CBD, caused less disruption to parts of the brain linked to addiction and psychosis. Users also reported a reduction in feelings of being high, and experts said this lent support to using high CBD strains for medical users. Over the last 2 decades, and I quote, "Over the last 2 decades, rates of addiction and psychosis linked to cannabis have been on the rise, while at the same time stronger strains of cannabis with more THC and less CBD have become increasingly common, said Dr. Matt Wall, lead author of the study, which was published in the Journal of Psychopharmacology. So let me just get into this a bit. Most of the people I've met in my life have smoked pot, and honestly, while there is the addict forming sense of in the same way as someone could get addicted to a food that's tasty and they like that food and they eat it a lot and they might get fat from it, it's the same goes for cannabis, but not psychosis induced crazy addiction unless you have a completely addict forming personality where you were going to get addicted to something one way or another, whether it was pot or food or drinking or anything. The difference is that most of these other things, alcohol, food, in general, just bad eating habits, cocaine, cigarettes, all these things have a highly more potential of causing an addiction. And it annoys me to see the level of ignorance regarding this stuff from people who probably never smoked this stuff personally. And I realize that it comes down to the individual. Some people have problems, and sometimes they mask their problems in cannabis or prostitution or cocaine or alcohol or food or whatever. Sometimes it's different. Sometimes they mask it in exercising and being healthy. I mean, there's so many ways that people mask mental issues, but that comes down to them as an individual. That's an issue of their own mind, of their own body, of their own being, not the use of cannabis. It's like saying that guns kill people. No. People that use guns can kill people, but they can also save people, just like countless medical marvels have come out of cannabis where people have saved their children's lives, saved their own lives, made their lives better with the use of CBD, THC, cannabis in general, and as well as the incredible potential of hemp and the hemp market, which is just absolutely unbelievable. So when I see stories about them denying immigration, this goes further than just, normal immigration. This also goes to investors who live in Canada, who are invested in the United States cannabis companies, being banned for 5 to 10 years from entering the United States. It's a U.S. company. They're Canadian. They're invested in it. They're millionaires. In many cases, they don't smoke pot at all, but they get banned. And this brings me to my point. Past cannabis, past any of that, is the fact that the government is an organized crime racket that decides your life for you like a slave. Think about it, folks. You're paying income tax. If you're paying income tax, that's basically you paying rent on your ability to live. You've been forced to pay the plantation owner. And you don't think anything of it? Sure, you get hurt when you see your check and go, oh man, they took money off of it. Why aren't you doing anything about it? Why are you obeying? They are stealing your money to create this gigantic prison state where they wall you in over time, gradually, more and more so, and control you more and more so like an incremental frog boil that you never notice because it's an incremental frog boil to complete collectivism and control and Orwellian control over the populace and pushing people into dependence, making people weaker and stupider, indoctrinating, and making people impoverished and more desperate and indebted. And then creating a giant landmass, which is completely communistic, by the way, this idea that the state owns the land, decides what can or cannot come in collectively for the populace, like they speak for every individual, going from point A to point B, destroying private property, seizing private property more than ever before in history. And therefore, if they own that giant landmass, as is theorized in communist ideology, then they own everything inside of it, which makes it a prison and makes you a cattle, makes you a slave, makes you a pawn that they're sacrificing for the king and the queen themselves. Why don't people think about this more? Why don't people put this together? They get caught up in the bread and circuses. They get caught up in the cultural, attacks and the arguments and the fighting and the nonsense. And why don't people think about this? Why don't people acknowledge this? They just think everything's okay because it's easier or more comfortable for them to be complacent. And that comfort and complacency will lead to the complete control and destruction of the masses and the execution of all remaining free will. Rule yourself, folks. Decentralize everything. Be your own responsible individual. Humanity itself is meant to be responsible, individually responsible, not collectively enslaved for the greater good of the greater number, as someone like G. Edward Griffin would put it. Humanity is meant to be responsible. Responsibility is a hallmark of freedom itself, and responsibility is what's necessary for survival. And if government's going to take every last bit of that away from you and then claim that you're somehow a criminal and a terrible person for using cannabis, a plant, imagine where their priorities are. This entity, the most immoral entity ever, that has killed hundreds of millions of people over the last century. Oh no, but they have a moral high ground to collectively tell people what they should or should not do, or else you can't enter a giant, vast landmass, or you can be put in constraints, aka handcuffs, and thrown in a cage, kidnapped by a bunch of henchmen with shiny badges. It's all a racket. It's all a racket. Don't allow yourself to be controlled and led to the slaughter by it like sheep on a farm, just waiting to be slaughtered, thinking all is good because you got grass to eat for the time being, so you must be free. No mention of the fence getting further and further in, encroaching on your ability to move and walk around freely. And before you know it, you're walking on eggshells. You're being very, very complacent and scared, and you have no more ability to speak out. And then what happens next? You're led to the slaughter, stupidly with a smile on your face, or with great regret that you never did anything when you had the chance. Anyway, we'll continue to cover all this as it continues to unfold. I'm sure it will. Jeff Sessions is out, but government remains the same. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out for World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. All right, guys. There's another report down. Oh, man. Okay, super chats, go to the top, guys. Help us out any way you can as we are being heavily shadow banned. It's really difficult to operate as a media these days. They are completely killing us. And here's our Bitcoin address for anyone interested for, giving us a tip. Helps us a lot as we're heading to Africa right away, and we are going to be making no money at all, and we are totally going to go broke. It's interesting that we have 43 people watching out of 122,000 viewers, subscribers. How does that make any sense? How is that not shadow banning? Anyway. So we got more reports going. For those that are just tuning in, don't go anywhere when we sign out. We are still going to be here. Just don't go anywhere. Make sure to press like on the video if you haven't already. Helps us to get to the top of the algorithm, get seen by a few more people. Anyway, let's see what we got next for our video here for reports. It's a few, but one of them is really, really incredibly tiring looking. It's a bunch of articles, so I'm going to start with this one, and if I'm still able to do it, I'll get to it after. Gwen Derma, hey, how's it going? Didn't get a notification for this on my YouTube account. I only saw it because Aaron posted. Thank you, Aaron Nakamoto, for posting. Thank you, Gwen, for tuning in. More Las Vegas locals, and they also, Aaron has a great Las Vegas Bitcoin meetup that everyone should check out, and I'm sure there's going to be another meetup soon. Check in on that. Anyway, and we got lots of big news to announce soon regarding events in Las Vegas, but Gwen says, hey, Alex is here too. Hello, everyone. Hello, Alex. Hello to everyone that's tuning in. I really appreciate it. Hello, Chrissy Shunda. Good to see you. And anyway, we're going to get into crypto next. So let's do it. Let's get this set up and ready to go, and we will be off. All right. Bad news, but we'll make the best of it. As this Zero Hedge article says, cryptos tumble after New York Attorney General accuses Bitfinex of massive fraud, loss of $850 million. These absolute morons continuously disrupt the ability for us to break free from the banking system and the government. It's absolutely sickening. We have seen in recent days, crypto has been doing pretty good. Institutional investors are getting back in. And let me just refresh this and see where it's at as we do this. Oh, it's back up to 5250 or something like that. It was just at almost $5,700 US per Bitcoin. And it's absolutely infuriating because these entities called online centrally planned exchanges, which are essentially like banks, are hurting the market. Go figure, a centralized entity is going to hurt a decentralized market and do whatever they can to disrupt the ability for us to, continuously move towards a free, individualistic society outside of this massive, what some might call the deep state and financial cartel. As this article goes into, New York's Attorney General alleged the operator of the Bitfinex cryptocurrency trading platform and the issuer of the Tether stablecoin lost $850 million and subsequently used funds for affiliated stablecoin operator Tether, i.e. engaged in commingling of client and corporate funds to secretly cover the shortfall. The news sparked a sharp sell-off of the cryptocurrency space, where Bitfinex has long been rumored to be a mechanism to prop up various virtual currencies. By the way, just cutting away for a second, we saw like a 5% drop in the price of Bitcoin in about 1 minute. So just putting that into perspective, that is a massive drop. That's billions of dollars in 1 minute sold off, because of these absolutely criminal, psychotic frauds that are running these banking system type exchanges. And then people blame cryptocurrency for it. No, this is a problem of online exchanges that are centralized, that people trust with their money like they trust with the banks, which might even be more dangerous than the banks, honestly. But anyway, let's go into this a little bit further. A judge in Manhattan issued an order barring Bitfinex or iFinex Inc., which operates the famous Bitfinex cryptocurrency exchange and owns Tether Limited, from money from Tether's reserves to Bitfinex's bank accounts. A little bit of a typo there. Halt any dividends or other distributions to executives and turn over documents and information, New York Attorney General Letitia James said Thursday in a statement. Tether is one of the world's most valuable cryptocurrencies and is used in a significant share of trades involving Bitcoin. The New York Attorney General said iFinex had been commingling client and corporate funds to cover up the missing funds, which occurred in mid-2018 and hadn't been disclosed publicly. Continuing on here, it says, and I quote, New York State has led the way in requiring virtual currency businesses to operate according to the law, James said. We will continue to stand up for investors and seek justice on their behalf when misled or cheated by any of these companies. Great! The government, which works with the banking system and legal tender laws to print everyone into complete poverty, is going to help us. Again, more excuses to bring in an organized crime racket to save us from an organized crime racket. The only difference is this organized crime racket that's coming in to help us has killed hundreds of millions of people, guys. This is so ridiculous, and it goes back to the black and white mentality of people that it must be one thing or the other, one kind of enslavement or the other. According to the Wall Street Journal, as it says, the Attorney General's findings emerged from an investigation into cryptocurrency exchanges that it launched in 2018 and is continuing. A report in September warned that many exchanges lacked basic safeguards and left consumers vulnerable to exploitation by market manipulators. And it says here, the Attorney General said Bitfinex's problems began in 2018 when it handed over $850 million to third-party payment processor Crypto Capital Corp. to handle customers' withdrawal requests. Over the months that followed, Panama-based Crypto Capital failed to process the orders, the Attorney General said. By November of that year, according to people close to the Attorney General's investigation, Bitfinex determined that it had permanently lost access to the $850 million to hide the missing funds. Bitfinex and Tether engaged in a series of maneuvers that drained Tether's reserves, the people said. Tether has frequently been accused of facilitating cryptocurrency price manipulation. It is allegedly backed 1-to-1 by US dollars, yet the firm has never released a public audit showing it has the reserves to back the coins in circulation, leading many to question whether the funds even exist. And let me just break away for a moment. They did release an audit, quote unquote, but they audited themselves, quote unquote, and then they claimed most of their money was in like a couple bank accounts, meaning that they put like hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars into like random bank accounts. Like, how ridiculous is that? Tether is one of the most dangerous things to the entire crypto world. It's a good idea to start with, with taxable transactions and everything, and it was a way to protect ourselves from getting taxed to death on our crypto earnings, capital gains. But then with the incoming of like laws like the tax code 1030, I believe, it was an amendment on it in January 2018, led to them completely taxing every transaction, though we'll get into that in a moment. As the Wall Street Journal notes as it continues, Tether has marketed the coin as a way to get both the safety of the dollar and speed and anonymity of a digital currency. Its market value has risen steadily over the past 2 years to $2.8 billion from about $10 million at the beginning of 2017. Since then, it has become a major source of liquidity in the cryptocurrency market, and about 80% of all Bitcoin trading is done via Tether, according to data from research site CryptoCompare. And this wouldn't be a problem if it weren't for this fraudulent extortion of the state and people being scared of having their money stolen, the money that they worked hard for. As it continues, some have speculated that Tether is how various Asian accounts have been quietly laundering money into cryptocurrencies, which they use to circumvent firewalls and deposit funds offshores. Oh yeah, government and banks, they're going to talk about money laundering. That's rich. That's cute. As it continues. Needless to say, $850 million would represent a major portion of Tether's reserves. Tether currently claims on its website that the coins it issues are backed by reserves that include currency, cash, equivalents, and other assets and receivables. According to the Wall Street Journal's Paula Vigna, the language was altered in March. It previously claimed the reserves were 100% in currency. Many Bitcoin advocates have repeatedly said that Tether represents a negative overhang over the cryptocurrency space and have been quietly hoping for a crackdown on both the exchange and stablecoin, which would result in far more stability in the space, which as seen in the chart above, tends to be greatly affected by any adverse report involving Tether. And you see this document right here. And anyway, I have to say, this is just more evidence of not just Tether and Bitfinex, but the government and the banking system scaring people to death who don't want to be impoverished and indebted, taking their money instead out of cryptocurrency into Tether instead of the US dollar, because if they put it into the US dollar, they're worried they're going to get extorted. But not to worry, folks. Let's look at the Credit Karma survey that came out last year, which showed that I think it was 0.05% of all people surveyed reported their cryptocurrency earnings to the IRS. Now, I'm not going to advocate anything here. You can make your own decisions in your life. But taxation is theft, it's extortion, and people are scared because people are more impoverished and indebted than ever, and they don't want to be extorted more. Look at Canada. Carbon tax? Seriously, a carbon tax, a tax on everything, with inflation going sky high and people thinking the minimum wage needs to be increased, which will lead to more unemployment and more casualties in small businesses while propping up major monopolies. And people don't blame the real culprits, government and central banks, and the banking system, which aids the central banks in printing currency, as well as the governments with fractional reserve lending. This is a travesty, and I'm so absolutely sick of seeing these morons manipulate the cryptocurrency market. Long term, I'm optimistic. We're good. But right now, we continuously have to battle with these criminals ripping our funds apart, ripping our financial freedom apart. The greatest thing that has ever existed in breaking free from the central banking system is a decentralized cryptocurrency technology and the fundamentally useful blockchain infrastructure technology to replace governments and banks. Not the centrally planned cashless society being unrolled by governments and banks, obviously by fiat, by legal tender, but no. The cryptocurrencies that are probably decentralized that we can actually utilize to break free from that system, and most notably, the privacy-oriented coins, which will really deep six the state who cannot comprehend breaking that technology as the free market moves faster than the state. All the time. Forever. Always. So this is going to be a temporary problem. Tether needs to go down, and it's going to be like Mount Gox, unfortunately, and it's sad. But look, do not blame cryptocurrency for what online exchanges are doing. The online exchanges are the ones that are creating these problems. Don't put your money in an exchange. Then you are dependent on the exchange rather than independently and financially stable and responsible over your own money. So that is the bottom line here, guys. As these organized crime cartels continue to crack down, there's different kinds of organized crime. There's government, there's banks, there's central banks, there's entities that try to make take advantage of people. And then as far as hiding money goes, I don't really care about that, but it's the idea that, banks are cracking down on people for hiding money in places from being stolen, which anyone in, as far as defense goes, if they're not completely complacent, might want to do. And then the banks are like the biggest money launderers in the world, and they're heavily indebted to the Cayman Islands, and I wonder why that is. And they're making desperation moves to crack down on this system right now and doing whatever they can to unroll their centrally planned, technocratic superstate cashless societies to completely enslave the populace. And they're concerned about people breaking free from that, and no matter how much the bears try to crush crypto, it always ends up going back up eventually. And we're in a long bear market, but I'm very, very bullish long term. We are in its infancy, and we've got a lot of great times ahead of us. Remember that. Don't forget it. We are free individuals. Government cannot give us freedom. They can only take it away from us. We must stand up as free individuals responsible for our own lives and our own surroundings and our own wealth, our own finances, and whatever comes with it. Our own defense. More important now than ever. Anyways, decentralize everything, rule yourself. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. All right, guys. Let's see. Press for Truth says, hey, cool, it's the guy from WAM, George Michael. Okay, whatever, your last name's Dix. Anyway, let's see, what do we got here? A reminder, everyone, Super Chats, help get your comments to the top and help us really, fight back against the information war that's happening right now as YouTube completely stifles us and tries to deep six us, where we have 45 viewers out of 122,000 subscribers. How does that make sense, guys? Please tell us. I want to know. I would love to know how that makes any sense at all. It doesn't. It's nonsense, and we are being muzzled. And I don't even care about demonetization. It's the fact that they're not allowing us to be seen by people. Harmony369 says, thanks for you, Edward Griffin and Josh. G. Edward Griffin, we meant to do another weekly show, but everyone's busy. He's busy, I'm busy. It looks like it's probably not going to happen until I'm back from Africa. But and I'll keep you updated on that. Again, for Africa, I'm going broke here, guys. Any super chats and help is deeply, deeply appreciated from the bottom of my heart. And I can't forget to tell everyone about our Subscribestar, where we will be doing subscriber-only content. And I really appreciate anyone who helps us out there, because we'll be doing not safe for YouTube content there as well, that YouTube will shadow ban us for even further and stop us from being seen by everyone, and then our media dies. We cannot allow ourselves to be deep sixed like everyone else is. We're seeing the mainstream media get crushed, and they're getting desperate, and they're trying to monopolize YouTube. Press for Truth. What stories have you covered so far today? Well, why don't you rewind? I'm just kidding. We have covered cryptocurrency getting ripped to shreds by these morons. Austria wants to ban online anonymity. They're basically unrolling the social credit system eventually, slowly but surely, and how Americans aren't buying into the elite cashless society utopia. And we also went into Bill Clinton being caught in the Mueller investigation having phone sex with Monica Lewinsky, because I got to have at least one story that stands out. And I'm not sure what else we got going. I think I'm going to do one more on Baltimore here, because it's a really crazy story that signifies everything we talk about. I just have to take a breath, relax for a second. I still have a lung infection, guys. 26 days later, I still have a lung infection. It's killing me, guys. I don't know what to do. I'm going to Africa right away with a lung infection. It's making me loopy in the head. Made my head break out in bumps and everything from these antibiotics. It's brutal. Anyway, enough about me. Let's get to some more stories here. And again, for those just tuning in, when I sign out of the report, I'm not going anywhere. Stay tuned. I see somebody tuned out. Harmony 369 looks like they tuned out. I'm still going to be here after the video. Make sure to send super chats to get to the top. Please, please, and thank you. Really helps a lot and helps us keep going. Anyway, see if my asthma will allow me to breathe, and let's get this ready to go. All right. Fun times, guys. All right, let's do this. As this Zero Hedge article hilariously says, Baltimore Mayor bolts, Pew missing after FBI IRS raid. And this is a huge story hitting headlines everywhere, guys. And as it goes into, Baltimore Mayor Catherine Pugh has gone missing after the FBI and IRS raided her home, according to Baltimore CBS affiliate WJZ. Jason Bentley, Pew's spokesman, told the Associated Press on Thursday that he has no clue where the mayor is, while her defense attorney, Steve Silverman, routed calls to her voicemail. Talk about a crazy story, and we'll get into Baltimore in general in a moment, but just like these criminals in government, this organized crime cartel we call government, is like, even they are getting busted by the government. The government is collapsing, guys, because they're fighting with each other and clashing. And this article mentions that she is at a home but isn't mentally stable enough, or is, as it says, Pew is not mentally or physically able to make any decisions, Thursday, according to Silverman. So she apparently just got over pneumonia, all that kind of stuff. But anyway, she's a mayor of Baltimore. We can say a lot about Baltimore, but let's get into some of these other articles here. And if you're wondering why there's underwear ads everywhere, it's because I've been looking for theft-proof underwear for Africa. So there's a bit of an insight into the complete recognition by, Google and knowing exactly how to target me with ads. Anyway, Baltimore paying total of more than $685,000 in salary for Mayor Pugh and her 6 staffers on leave. And as this article goes into, it was from April 18th, so it's a little old, but it goes into the context here. Democratic Mayor Catherine Pugh of Baltimore is on paid leave, as are some of her highest ranking and closest associates. Overall, their annual salaries add up to at least $685,800. The city has not explained why the mayor's 6 staffers have been placed on leave. Ex-officio mayor Bernard J.C. Jack Young, nice name there, a bit long, has said he has not fired anyone and can't talk about personal decisions, but aims to provide stability and continuity of government. Oh, great, that's what we need, more government, more continuity of this organized crime racket we call the state, stealing people's money and plundering people into debt servitude. And anyway, as it continues, here's a look at who is on leave, since when, and how much they're being paid. And it shows Mayor Catherine Pugh, 29, took office in December 2016. She put herself on leave April 1st when she announced that she needed time off to recover from pneumonia. The mayor receives an annual salary of $185,000. Her illness and absence from office followed the revelation last month that she had a no-bid deal to sell her Healthy Holly children's book series to the University of Maryland Medical System, where she had been on the board of directors since 2001. She also sold the book to businesses that had contracts with the city. So there's something that is a good influence on children. Not only criminality of being a politician and stealing people's money to further their own goals and completely stealing people's money to fund crime, but also hardcore crime in selling a children's book and pay for play type stuff. That's fun. As this continues, Bruce H. Williams began working as Pugh's chief of staff January 1st. Young Democrat put him on leave Wednesday. His salary wasn't immediately available. The previous chief of staff, Kimberly R. Morton, was paid $183,300 a year. Williams has a background in information technology, including 30 years with IBM Corp. Good, a CIA corporation. That works with government perfectly. Makes sense. Karen R. Stokes, Director of Government Relations for the city, joined Pugh's staff the day after the mayor's inauguration. Young placed her on leave Wednesday. Stokes made $156,743 last year, according to city records. Stokes, an attorney, lobbies the city council and General Assembly on behalf of Pugh's priorities for Baltimore. You know, stealing more people's money. Oh, here's an ad. Okay. Get out of here. All right. Afra Vance White, the city's director of external relations, was placed on leave last week by Young. Vance White began working for Pugh days after the mayor took office. Vance White's annual salary is $117,300. Pugh and Vance White are co-owners, along with city comptroller Joan Pratt, of Two Chic Boutique, a consignment store in the Pigtown neighborhood. Pigtown seems like a good area for politicians to hang out. Poetry Deal, that is a crazy name. Poetry Deal is on leave as of last week. She is Stokes' deputy in the government relations office. She joined city government in January 2017 and is paid $100,000 at $737 a year. And Gary Brown Jr. also was placed on leave last week from the lobbying office by Young. Brown who also started working for Pugh as mayor days after she was sworn in, makes $62,220 annually, so that's not actually that much. Brown, Deal, and Vance White have close ties to Pugh outside of their roles in city government. A page on a website for the Maryland Center for Adult Training, a nonprofit job training program once led by Pugh, listed the three as of March 6 as members of the center's board of directors. The city awarded the center a contract worth $28,649 over the past 2 years to pay for training regulated by the Maryland Higher Education Commission. Stephanie Hall, a staffer on the Baltimore Women's Commission, was also placed on leave. She joined city government in March 2018 and is paid $63,800 a year. Hall was Pugh's campaign chairwoman from 2001 to 2003. Any salary is a lot when it comes from taxpayers, by the way. But anyway, it's a huge, huge story that is plaguing Baltimore right now and is just more examples of the criminality of the state. The idea that these complete mafiosos can get away with murder, can get away with stealing people's funds, can get away with getting special favors behind closed doors, then blaming corporations for their, lack of morality, and, standing on their high horse, looking down at the public as if they, these politicians have the moral high ground to dictate what's morally right for them to do. It's so absurd. They put in all these laws, they regulate, they tax, they destroy small businesses, they prop up major monopolies. They have these pay-for-play operations, allegedly. It goes without saying, though. It's a total house of cards on crack, guys. And these people are thrown in prison for victimless crimes. You can't defend yourself properly in Baltimore. The gun laws are absolutely ridiculous. And then we got stuff like this, which I can't go without mentioning out of this Vice article. Baltimore cops carried toy guns to plant on people they shot. Trial reveals. One officer involved in the city's massive corruption scandal said officers kept the replicas in case we accidentally hit somebody or got into a shootout so we could plant them. And this is nothing new, guys. The police, the government henchmen with shiny badges that think they're above the law and have a right over you and get on power trips and beat their wives and go on steroids and all the usual stuff that surveys have found in recent years. Again, they think they have the moral high ground. They are known to plant guns on people, plant cocaine on people, and this is just an issue with the monopolization of government force rather than private contract, individual demand deciding these things and destroying a small business or a business that would ever try to get away with this kind of nonsense and criminality. As it says, last week, the beginning of an explosive corruption trial involving 8 members of Baltimore's elite gun trace task force reveals that a handful of Baltimore cops allegedly kept fake guns in their patrol cars to plant on innocent people, a failsafe that they could use if they happened to shoot an unarmed suspect, the Baltimore Sun reports. Detective Maurice Ward, who's already pleaded guilty to corruption charges, testified that he and his partners were told to carry the replicas and BB guns in case we accidentally hit somebody or got into a shootout, so we could plant them. The directive allegedly came from the team's sergeant, Wayne Jenkins, the Washington Post reports. The Ward didn't say whether or not the tactic was ever used. Detective Marcus Taylor, another cop swept up in the scandal, was carrying a fake gun almost identical to his service weapon when he was arrested last year, according to The Sun. The revelation is just one of many egregious abuses that have come out of the sprawling trial that The Sun has called Baltimore's biggest police corruption scandal in memory. Prosecutors say the squad, which was tasked with getting illegal guns off the streets, abused its power by robbing suspects and innocent people, raiding homes without warrants, and selling confiscated drugs, among other crimes. Guys, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Government is an organized crime racket. It's bigger than an organized crime racket. More criminal, more death toll, just creating order out of chaos as it continues. But the BB gun testimony is particularly disturbing in light of 12-year-old Tamir Rice's death in 2014. The 13-year-old Baltimore, who was shot twice by cops in 2016 after he allegedly sprinted from them with a replica gun in his hand, and the 86 people fatally shot by police in 2015 and 2016 who were spotted carrying toy guns. Who else is completely freaking disgusted by this? 6 of the 8 task force members charged in the corruption scandal have pleaded guilty to racketeering charges, but Taylor and Detective Daniel Hersel have pleaded not guilty. They're currently on trial while several of their former partners testify against them. It makes sense that the places with the biggest government have the most violence, the most criminality, because government is organized crime and they're probably working with the street gangs. They take away good people's guns. The black market flourishes. You have bad people with guns. And then on top of that, let's mix this in with the debt dependency and the dependency in general, because the government's goal is to make people stupid and dependent and desperate. It's one of the greatest benefits of the state is to push people into further servitude. And guess what? Taking away people's guns, creating divide and conquer in the media and propagating people and indoctrinating people to hate each other for the color of their skin. Whether it's black people hating white people hating black people, regardless of which side it's looked at, it's all part of that divide and conquer agenda to get people to clash against each other instead of looking at the real enemy, the state, which is deep-sixing people's lives, ripping people apart, pushing them into poverty, pushing them into dependence, sacrificing them as pawns for the king and the queen. This is criminal. This is fraud. This is disgusting, violent, criminal activity, and the government is a MVP of murder on this planet, killing hundreds of millions of people in the last century, shoving people into cages after kidnapping them for victimless crimes, complete nonsense, complete organized crime cartels, arming and funding gangs and cartels, running guns to them, creating the problem of the drug war, etc., arming terrorists and funding them, and then going out and using that as a reason to blow up babies, kidnapping people, polluting more than any other industry, and then stealing people's money to pay for pollution while banning hemp and alternatives. It's so disgusting, guys. This is just sickening. And you see cities like Baltimore falling apart at the seams with one scandal after another. At least it's being exposed, but still. You have this culture of dependency, which they're pushing on African Americans, which, look, we are not hearing enough stories about the white people that are getting killed by cops. But with that said, the reason we're hearing more about the black people getting killed by cops is because, first of all, it is a trend in many places, not necessarily everywhere, but in many places. And then on top of that, they can use that to divide people afterwards. What we see in the news and what we're privy to, the information we're privy to create more divide. black and white, right? It's all about clashing people against each other. And then, they sacrifice us as pawns for the king and the queen. We need to rise up as individuals, regardless of skin color, regardless of this divide that they've tried to bestow upon the populace, and be independent and responsible for our own lives. Disobey, reject these criminals. Don't elect a new person. Electing a new person, replacing the boss with another boss over your life. Good ideas do not require force, guys. You cannot tell your neighbor how to live. You cannot force your neighbor to live a certain way at the point of a gun with threat of prison and further extortion or death. It is sick, it's immoral, it's illogical. And it's been perpetuated for far too long, going back to ancient Greece. It's normalized via an incremental frog boil to complete technocracy, complete collectivism. For the greater good of the greater number, as the Orwellian state says, as they slowly but surely crack down on your individual liberties. Left, right, Pepsi, Coke, violent coercion against the masses, destruction of free will and individual liberty, pushing you into dependence rather than responsibility so that you cannot defend yourself, you cannot defend your viewpoints, you have to walk on eggshells, you're scared to talk, you're complacent with a system and apathetic in your comfort for enslavement. Because it's easier that way, isn't it? It's not. If just 1% of us disobeyed, the whole system would collapse. Freedom comes from within. From within here. Not from the state. The freedom cannot be given to you by the state. They can only take it away. But here we have Baltimore mayor on the run, getting her house broken into by the King Thieves IRS and, criminal FBI, while at the same time being a criminal herself. The whole system is falling apart at the seams, and now is a better chance than ever to break free as free individuals. Non-violently, peacefully break free from that system and use the technology. There's decentralized, properly, fundamentally useful blockchain technology infrastructure that we could use to replace this system, break free from the banking system, which prints vast amount of currency out of thin air and charges you the interest on the debt, which rips us apart, causes the price of living to go up, and then they're like, oh, but we need to raise minimum wage. No, it just goes in a circle perpetually forever. Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution, repeat. Are you going to be one of the casualties of this massively destructive, disgusting criminal system? Or are you going to stand up as a free human, free individual and be a good representation of freedom for the children that come after you, for your grandchildren, for the world that you live in? Are you going to go out of this world leaving it a better place than you entered it? Or are you going to be complacent to this incremental frog boil to complete enslavement as Nero plays his fiddle and Rome burns? That's up to you. Anyway, until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. All right, guys. I get way too caught up sometimes in this stuff. Oh, man. Okay. So we still have 45 out of 122,000 people watching. Cool. Press like on below the video and keep us up and running. It's really helpful, guys. And if Dan Dix is still watching, I also did a story on CBD and cannabis and immigration laws regarding cannabis. Anyway, I've done a lot more videos today on this live stream than I usually would. So if you haven't already, make sure to check out my recent Ancient Civilizations video, which no one is watching, which is really, really frustrating because I put a ton of work. It's a full-fledged documentary, guys, called Lost Ancient Civilizations, Egypt's Oldest, Most Mysterious Sites. Will shock you. Really hope more people watch that. Anyway, I'm running out of breath. I really appreciate everyone watching us today. There's a huge delay on the video. I just saw, as I talk now, I'm signing out on the live stream. So that tells me we're way behind. So hopefully I can answer your questions in time. Man, sucks. Let's see. Scuba Dracula, F the system, go Ubuntu. Jay Zima, the shadow banning is bad. Absolutely. It's terrible. Absolutely brutal. Never seen anything like it. It's an attack on our ability to combat the absolute, misrepresentations and disinfo by the state and the media and the school systems around the world. It's sickening. We need to break free from that system. And independent media, whether it's myself, whether it's Press for Truth, whether it's We Are Change, is crucial. It's crucial. Maya Roke, please read my question. Okay, well, let me try and find it. There's a lot of comments on here. I can't read all of them. That's why the super chats go to the top. Where is it? Let's see. I am not seeing it. How long ago was this? Yeah, Maya, I'm not seeing this at all. I'm scrolling almost all the way to the top. I don't know where it is. You'll have to ask me again. Yeah, sorry. I can't see it anywhere. Anyway, I think I'm going to be tuning out or signing out here right away. We're an hour and 25 minutes in. I am dying because I had to turn my air conditioning off for the sake of it being cool in here. Or for the sound, actually. See, I'm going loopy in my head. It gets really loud with the air conditioning in my house, so I had to turn it off. And I'm in Las Vegas. And it's hot in Las Vegas. Really, really hot. JRM O'Brien says to Maya, I can't see it too. Oh, here it is. Maya says, Josh, question. If cryptos are so good to invest that all they do, then why is it that it's like only few whales print cryptos out of thin air and they want to sell it for hundreds or thousands of dollars? I don't think that's the case. That doesn't make any sense. Bitcoin creation is halved every so often. They can only create 21 million Bitcoins by the year 2140 or something. Yeah, 2140. And yeah, whales aren't just printing it out of thin air. There's nothing wrong with people having hundreds of millions of dollars in crypto either. I mean, if good for them, successful. It's up to us as responsible human beings to, compete to be the best. If other people do better than us, then it should only motivate us to try and do better than them. Jealousy is it's not a good thing. And anger towards people that are more successful than us distracts us from our abilities to surpass them. Whenever I get somewhat jealous of someone or get angry that someone else has something better than me, I just do my very best to do better than them. That's the way it is for me anyway. But I'm just trying to understand your question or comprehend it. It's want to sell it for hundreds or thousands of dollars? Yeah, I don't really understand what you're saying, honestly. I'm sorry. Let's see. Pat, will the collapse of the Fed impact the UK? Absolutely, and the UK is in complete poverty right now. Children that are impoverished is a massive issue. Many are reporting to their teachers that they haven't eaten in days. There's a huge problem with the children not being able to get food in the United Kingdom right now. It's horrible. But no, it's a debt crisis worldwide, and a currency crisis that will create a domino effect. The U.S. is just a world reserve currency, but once that falls, everything falls after it. The difference is that probably China will be able to survive a bit longer than the rest, but nonetheless, it will all fall eventually. And it's up to us what we do to protect ourselves from that. But yeah, every system in the world is run on the same system. It's all central banking, centralization, creation of currency out of thin air, the indebting of the populace. It's a horrible thing. BJB Bazin says, Josh, you asked us to mark your words. The Bitcoin would be 2K? No. I said the bottom would likely be 28 or 2.8K. My options or my bottoms in December 2017, right before the bust, when I predicted that it would hit 20K and drop, I said it would fall to 4,600. No, 4,800, 3,600, and then 2,800. And I was basically 100% right. Hit 4,800, bounced to 5. Fell to 3,600, bounced to 4. And then fell to about 3,000. So it was a little bit above my last bottom. I can't see it going any lower. It could technically fall to like as far as 1,800. I've seen some people predict using technical analysis, but you also have to incorporate the institutional investors into that, and the bears are really losing really bad right now. The only issue is that, as I reported earlier on the show, there's a massive problem with these moron criminals at the online centrally planned exchanges. Anyway, so I appreciate everyone tuning in right now to the show. I am like exhausted mentally now. I think I did 6 reports today. That's more than I usually did. But it'll give me something to post because I'm running to Africa right away. And if you don't hear from me, that's why. If you still don't hear from me in a long time from now, call for help. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, it looks like the stream is kind of taking a while to load and freezing up, so I'm going to tune out. Thanks for watching, everyone. Until next time, make sure to tip if you can. It helps us 1,000,000%. Seriously, it helps us stay alive. We cannot do it without you. It's really, like, we are getting ripped to shreds by the shadow banning right now, and it's depressing. It's really sad. We need to be able to compete against the mainstream media complex of fear and misinformation. We must have our decentralized solutions. We must break free from the slave racket that we've been thrust into. Here's our subscribe star account. It allows us to give you not safe for YouTube comments, subscriber only content. It helps a lot. It's linked below. And anyway, again, we can't do it without you guys. You make this all possible. Thank you for watching us again. Stay tuned for more. And until next time, I'm so out of it. I'm sorry. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.